The room was silent, save for the shallow breathing of a man who had carried the weight of a world on his shoulders. Outside, the marble corridors of the Vatican echoed with the steps of those too afraid to speak of what was happening. Within, the dying Pope Francis, once a figure of radiant strength, now lay fragile, diminished, but more alive than ever in his spirit. They say that at the end, a person's soul speaks more clearly than ever before. They say that the veil between this life and what comes next grows thinner, almost transparent. Those who were there, the few trusted ones, swear that in those final hours, Pope Francis whispered not words of farewell, but prophecy, not empty comfort, but warning, and the most haunting among them was a single, urgent revelation. 3 signs in the sky, he said, voice barely a breath, will herald a great division of souls. Watch the heavens. At the time, the witnesses, cardinals, attendants, even family, did not know how to understand what they had heard. Was it delirium? Was it symbolic? Or had the dying pope seen something so real, so terrifying, that even the act of speaking it aloud was an act of immense courage? Days passed, weeks, and the memory of his words, though frightening, began to fade from the minds of those who had heard them. It was easier that way. It's always easier to forget warnings that demand change. But now, months later, the world is beginning to see what was so easily dismissed. Because the heavens have begun to move, and the signs, as impossible as it may sound, are beginning to manifest exactly as he foretold. There is a strange heaviness in the sky now, not of weather, but of meaning. Phenomena once relegated to scientific curiosity are beginning to feel different, weighted, almost deliberate. Lights that should not be there. Movements that defy explanation. A pulse in the stars that some have started to feel rather than merely see. And deep within the collective soul of humanity, a tension is rising. Not the tension of politics, not the tension of war, something deeper, something older. The feeling that a great unseen sorting has begun, that the souls of men and women across the earth are being drawn, pulled, divided along lines not of culture or creed, but of spirit. And those who are awake, even just barely awake, can feel it. They can feel the subtle shudder when they look at the sky at night, sensing without understanding that something is stirring beyond the clouds, beyond the stars. Pope Francis had warned that the division would not come through force. It would not be announced with fanfare. It would be spiritual, silent, inevitable. He had seen it coming long before his final hours. The rise of cynicism disguised as wisdom, the slow erosion of trust in the sacred, the transformation of compassion into transaction, the hollowing out of faith until only empty rituals remained. But the signs in the sky, these were to be the final confirmation, the last mercy, a chance, however small, for those willing to open their eyes one last time before the darkness made them blind forever. As the Pope's breathing grew more ragged, as the hours slipped through his fingers like grains of sand, he repeated the warning to the few who stayed at his bedside. 3 signs, and then the great divide. His hand, frail and shaking, traced a shape in the air that no one could quite describe afterward. A circle broken by a crack of lightning, a star falling out of orbit, a cross bending under some invisible weight. None of them were certain, but all of them felt the shiver in their souls. It wasn't the words alone that chilled them. It was the certainty behind them. It was the way his failing voice, so weak just moments before, grew sharp and commanding when he spoke of the signs. As if for a moment he was not speaking as a man, but as a vessel, as if the warning had been burning inside him, waiting for the final breath to be released. Now, as strange celestial phenomena begin to unfold across the world, the pieces are falling into place. Those who once laughed at prophecy now find themselves staring into the night sky with a discomfort they cannot explain. Scientists offer theories, explanations, equations, and perhaps some of them are true in part. But deep down, we all know, the soul knows, It recognizes when the earth shifts under our feet, even when our minds are too terrified to admit it. We were warned, and the first sign, the first movement in the heavens, has already appeared. But few are watching, fewer still are prepared. And as the second and third signs approach, the great spiritual division that Pope Francis foresaw will no longer be hidden. It will cut through families, it will cut through nations, it will cut through hearts. A line, invisible but unbreakable, will be drawn, and each soul will stand, by choice or by surrender, on one side or the other. The time of comfortable indecision is ending. You were born for this moment. You were called to witness this hour. And now, as the first sign blazes silently across the heavens, the true battle for the soul of the world is about to begin. In the next breath, we will dive into the first of the three signs, a phenomenon that has already begun to disturb the ancient patterns of the stars, sending an unspoken message to those willing to listen. Wake up, or be left behind. It began with a flicker, so subtle, so faint, that most would never have noticed it at all. Above the great cities, over the silent fields, in the vast oceans where the sky seems closer to the soul, something changed. A star, familiar in its constancy for generations, began to pulse. At first, astronomers dismissed it. Stars flicker all the time, they said. They are born in chaos, live in fire, die in collapse. A star flickering was not new, but this was not the ordinary breathing of a star. This was something else. It pulsed not in the natural rhythm of a living sun, but in a pattern, deliberate, almost sentient, bright, then dim, bright, then dim, but not in the mechanical cadence of a heartbeat. It was uneven, jarring, as if the star itself were gasping, as if it were struggling to stay visible against a force unseen. Night after night, those who paid attention saw the pattern intensify. Some said it looked like a signal. Others said it was a warning. And some, those who remembered the last words of Pope Francis, knew it was the first sign. The black wind that Francis spoke of, the great division of souls he foresaw, would not come with earthquakes or wars, though those might follow. It would come first in the spirit, a disruption in the invisible fabric that connects heaven and earth. The stars' struggle was a reflection of our own. As faith wanes, as hope dims, as love falters, even the heavens groan under the weight of it. It is written that the heavens declare the glory of God. But what happens when that glory is no longer recognized by the earth below? The stars' irregular pulse seemed almost mournful, as if it too sensed the forgetting, the forsaking, the slow death of awe among those who once lifted their eyes to wonder. Scientists, pressed by growing public curiosity, began to offer explanations. Fluctuations in brightness are normal, they insisted. Stellar instability, cosmic dust, ordinary phenomena. And perhaps, on one level, they were right. But the soul is not fooled so easily. Those who stood under the dark sky and felt the unease creeping into their bones knew that this was no ordinary event. They felt the silence thickening around them. They felt the gap widening between what could be measured and what could be felt. They felt, even if they could not say it aloud, that something sacred was being broken. In ancient times, the wise men watched the skies not merely for science, but for signs. They understood that the heavens mirrored the movements of the spirit. They knew that a star trembling in its place was not just astronomy, it was a message. The first message is this: something is shifting, something deep and irreversible. And the star's pulse is not a random occurrence. It is a reflection, a resonance of the spiritual convulsions now gripping the earth. You may have felt it already. The growing fatigue in your spirit, as if every effort to believe, to hope, to love, has become heavier. The sense of distance, even among those you once felt closest to. The creeping suspicion that something essential is slipping away. Not with a scream, but with a sigh. The star flickers. Your soul flickers. The world itself flickers. This is not coincidence. It is warning. And those who ignore it, Those who brush it aside with easy explanations and clever dismissals are the ones who will be most shocked when the darkness descends fully. Pope Francis spoke of the Great Division, not as punishment, but as consequence. The division between those who cling to the light, even as it grows dim, and those who let go, drifting silently into the blackness without even realizing they have chosen. The star, once steady, now gasps in the heavens, and so do we. The question pressing against your chest right now is simple but devastating. Will you be among those who still see the light when it falters? Or will you be among those who no longer notice when it disappears altogether? The first sign has appeared, and it is not just out there in the sky. It is inside you, inside me, inside every human soul, standing at the edge of the greatest unseen battle ever fought. But there is more, because the first sign was only the beginning. In the next breath, we will confront the second sign, a wound in the sky itself, a tear in the veil between the worlds, an event so strange and so undeniable that even the most hardened skeptics are beginning to tremble. The star has pulsed. The sky is about to bleed, and what pours through that tear may change everything you thought you knew about the battle now raging all around you. Prepare yourself, because once you see it, you can never go back to sleep again. It happened quietly at first, witnessed not by crowds but by solitary souls scattered across the earth. An inexplicable light tearing through the sky. Not the sun, not the moon, not even the familiar dance of northern lights. Something different, something raw. It did not move like lightning. It did not pulse like a star. It raged, sudden and violent, like a gash across the heavens, a wound too wide to heal. Those who saw it struggled to explain. Some called it a flash, but it lingered longer than any flash should. Some said it was like the splitting of fabric, a fracture running silently across the canopy of night. Others simply wept, unable to find words for what they had witnessed, because deep down, their souls knew this was not science, this was not spectacle, this was a signal. The ancient world spoke often of signs in the heavens, the parting of veils, the opening of portals, not in the crude sense of fantasy, but in the spiritual reality that every visible thing mirrors an invisible truth. The sky, once a fortress separating heaven from earth, had been pierced, and through that tear, something ancient and wild had begun to bleed. Pope Francis had spoken of it, though few understood him. He warned that the second sign would not be hidden. It would be too massive, too undeniable, and yet, even when seen, it would still be dismissed by those whose hearts had already been hardened by comfort and fear. You can imagine it now. A man walking his dog, glancing up at the sky, seeing the impossible, and choosing to shrug it off, telling himself it was nothing, a trick of the atmosphere, a glitch in his tired mind. A mother rocking her child at a window, pausing as she sees the sky rip open like a paper page, and then shaking her head, closing the curtains, whispering, "Just my imagination." Because accepting the truth would demand too much. It would demand awakening. It would demand action. It would demand courage. And courage in these days is a rare and costly thing. The light that tore through the heavens did not speak in words, but every soul who glimpsed it felt the same message searing into their bone. Time is running out. The division is accelerating. The black wind is no longer at the edge of the world. It is here. It is in your cities, your churches, your homes, your own restless mind. This light, unnatural, chilling, glorious, is both a wound and a warning. A wound because something vital has been broken. The old protections, the old orders, the old barriers that held chaos at bay have been breached. The separation between the sacred and the profane is no longer firm. A warning because this breach demands a response. You cannot stand at the edge of a broken world and pretend nothing has changed. You cannot gaze at a torn sky and continue sleepwalking through your days, numbing yourself with distractions and empty noise. Not anymore. The light that should not exist has marked the beginning of a spiritual war no army can fight, no government can legislate, no technology can fix. It is a battle for souls. And every soul, yours included, will have to choose. Already the symptoms are visible for those who dare to look. An explosion of rage and hatred with no clear cause. A growing madness, not clinical, but spiritual, gnawing at the edges of society. A deep weariness, a profound hunger for something real, anything real, even among those who laugh the loudest and shout the most. The tear in the sky was not the cause, it was the consequence. The final visible cry of a creation groaning under the weight of a humanity that has forgotten its own soul. And the light that split the heavens is calling out even now, in the secret places of your heart, calling you to wake up, calling you to remember. Because what pours through that tear, through that broken sky, will not be passive. It will shape the world to come. It will separate the sleepers from the awake, the faithful from the lost, the courageous from the comfortable. And those who pretend not to see it will find, sooner than they think, that pretending is no longer enough to save them. The second sign has come. The sky itself has testified, and the division that Pope Francis foresaw is no longer a future possibility. It is a living reality, unfolding even now with every choice you make. But there is still one more sign to come, the third sign, a vision so ancient, so primal, that it has haunted humanity's oldest dreams and darkest fears since the first night they ever dared to look up and wonder. The third sign will not be a flicker. It will not be a tear. It will be a dance, a terrible, beautiful dance, written across the heavens, a final summons for every soul who still dares to believe that the battle can be won. And once it comes, there will be no turning back. You must choose. You must stand. You must decide whether you will be counted among the forgotten or among the faithful. Prepare yourself, because the third sign is closer than you think, and its appearance will mark the beginning of the final separation. There are places in this world where the sky is meant to dance. The far north, the deep south, places where the magnetic soul of the earth brushes against the cold breath of space and creates a symphony of light. The auroras, green rivers of fire, purple veils of mist, blue whispers flowing across the stars. But now, the dance has begun in places it should never reach. In deserts, in cities, over forests and plains that have never known the caress of auroral light. The sky has started to bleed, colors never meant for those lands. At first, it seemed a gift, a miracle. People poured into the streets with their phones held high, capturing the spectacle, laughing, marveling. Children pointed upward, their eyes wide with wonder. News outlets called it extraordinary, beautiful, a once-in-a-lifetime event. But they did not understand. The beauty was only the surface. The real message was hidden underneath, just as Pope Francis had warned in his final prophecy. The third sign would not come to terrify at first. It would come to enchant. It would come to seduce the heart into forgetting that not all light is holy, that not every miracle is a blessing. Beneath the shimmering curtains of color, something darker moved. Those who looked carefully noticed that the auroras were wrong. Not just their presence, but their movement. They twisted too quickly, pulsed too sharply, faded, and returned like breaths caught in a throat. Patterns emerged within the colors, fleeting shapes, almost like runes, almost like warnings written in a language the soul half remembers and half fears. And the timing was too perfect. The first pulse of the flickering star, the tearing light across the heavens, and now, the arrival of these unnatural auroras. 3 signs, 3 cries from a wounded cosmos, 3 reminders that the division of souls was not coming. It had already begun. Ancient cultures believed that auroras were bridges between worlds, pathways for spirits, gates for angels and demons alike. The Norse called them Bifrost, the rainbow bridge connecting earth to the divine. The Inuit told stories of souls playing in the afterlife, their games lighting up the frozen skies. But when the lights appear where they do not belong, when they dance in rhythms that do not match the old songs, the wise among us understand it is not a bridge being built, it is a boundary being broken. The black wind that Pope Francis foresaw does not move like an army. It moves like a story, first unbelievable, then undeniable. And the auroras, beautiful and haunting, are part of that story. A story that says the walls between the seen and the unseen are growing thin. The ancient protections are crumbling, and the spirits that once whispered only in dreams are stepping into the waking world. Those who are awake can already feel it. Dreams growing heavier, stranger, more vivid. Moments of déjà vu so sharp they feel like cuts. A sense of being watched, not by a person, but by something vast and patient, hidden just beyond the edge of sight. The auroras swirl overhead, and within their colors lies a question. Not shouted, not spoken, but felt deep in the marrow. Will you cross the bridge? Will you drift with the easy beauty of the lights, surrendering to wonder without discernment, forgetting to test the spirits that beckon? Or will you remember that true light does not seduce? It calls. It does not dazzle to blind. It illuminates to guide. And the lights that now dance over unsuspecting cities are not guiding. They are tempting. A great choice is being offered, not with force, but with fascination. Follow the beauty without question, or cling to the truth, even when it comes wrapped in silence and sacrifice. Pope Francis wrote that the final battles of this age would not look like battles. There would be no clashing armies, no burning cities at first. The battlefield would be the heart, and the weapon would be deception so beautiful that only the truly awakened could resist it. The third sign has come. The sky is no longer neutral. It is a canvas where the hidden war is being painted, stroke by invisible stroke. And now you must decide whether you will be among those who watch the lights in wonder and walk willingly into the gathering dark, or among those who see beyond the beauty, hear the warning beneath the music, and stand firm even when the world dances into the abyss. But there is one more truth that few dare to speak. The three signs, the star, the tear, the false auroras, are not isolated events. They are the opening chords of a final symphony, a symphony that will either end in collapse or in the rebirth of a new world forged through fire, faith, and unspeakable trials. And Pope Francis, even with his last breath, left clues not just to survive, but to overcome. In the next breath, we will uncover what the third sign truly demands of those who dare to resist. The path ahead is narrow. The cost will be high, but the reward will be nothing less than the reclamation of the soul itself. Prepare yourself, because after the lights fade, the true battle will begin. You might have thought the signs were meant to terrify you, that they were warnings to make you shrink back, to hide, to survive at any cost. But that was never the purpose. The signs, the flickering star, the torn sky, the unnatural auroras, were not given to scare the faithful. They were given to awaken them, to call them back to a truth that modern life has buried under mountains of comfort, distraction, and pride. The truth that this world is not permanent, that kingdoms rise and fall, that even the stars can flicker and die, and that every soul must, in the end, decide where it stands when the foundations of the earth begin to crack. The true meaning of the three signs is not about the sky. It is about the heart. Each sign mirrors a deeper movement within us, a flickering faith, a torn loyalty between the sacred and the profane, a seduction by false lights that promise beauty but deliver emptiness. The flickering star is the first question whispered into your soul. Will you hold on to the light even when it falters? The torn sky is the second question screamed across your spirit. Will you remain faithful even when the world itself seems to be ripping apart? The false auroras are the third and final question, wrapped in deadly beauty. Will you have the discernment to see through illusion and cling to the truth when deception wears the mask of wonder? This is the division Pope Francis foresaw, not the division between races or nations or ideologies, the division between those who still hunger for the light of truth and those who will sell their souls for the fleeting comfort of dazzling lies. And the moment of decision is no longer distant. It is here. Already you feel it. The small compromises becoming habits, the quiet doubts growing louder, the seductive pull of despair whispering that perhaps it would be easier to stop fighting, to stop hoping, to stop believing. But you must not give in, because the darkness cannot claim the soul that refuses to surrender. You must not wait for a clearer sign. You must not hope for an easier choice. The sky has spoken. The signs have been given. The division is happening now, in every conversation, in every private thought, in every act of kindness or cruelty. The true battlefield is within you, and the decision is being made not once, but every day, every hour, every heartbeat. Will you choose to stay awake when the world dreams itself into oblivion? Will you choose to remain faithful when the easy path offers glittering comfort? Will you choose to love when hatred is more popular, more praised, more rewarded? Pope Francis believed, no, he knew, that the future would not belong to the strong or the clever or the beautiful. It would belong to the faithful, to those who carried the light not because it made them powerful, but because it made them human. And so now you must carry it, not because it is easy, not because it is safe, but because it is the only thing left worth carrying. You must carry it through the loneliness, through the mockery, through the betrayals and the silences and the empty nights when it seems like no one else remembers what the fight is for. You must carry it even when your hands tremble and your heart breaks, because the black wind that has begun to sweep across the world will devour everything that is not rooted deeply in truth. It will strip away the facades. It will expose the lies. It will leave standing only those whose souls have been tempered like steel in the hidden fires of prayer, sacrifice, and unshakable love. This is your call, not to run, not to hide, but to stand when others fall, to shine when others fade, to remember when others forget. Because after the last flicker of the false lights fades, after the final storm has passed, a new world will be born, a world not of comfort, but of truth, not of spectacle, but of substance, not of selfishness, but of self-giving love. And those who endure, those who refuse to be seduced or broken, will be the seeds from which this new world will grow. You were born for this time. You were chosen for this hour. The signs were not given to frighten you. They were given to awaken you. Awake, then. Stand up. Carry the light into the gathering dark, because the eyes of heaven are watching, and the time is now. The time has always been now, and your answer will echo not only in this world, but in the world that is coming.